Hello everyone, my name is Joey, welcome to my channel, and today we're taking a look at what you really need to play The Sims 4. So we're going to bust some myths, we're going to really prove that you don't need a lot of money to play a good game. So I see a lot of Facebook posts going after people who might be a bit poorer, who can't really afford a excellent computer, who just want to play some Sims, and I sympathise with that. Back in the day, I used to play The Sims 3 on like a netbook that was definitely under the system requirements. So the computer I'm running is... Oh, I've closed the one I want to show you. There we go. So we're running this on a Intel Core 2 Duo E8400 at 3 GHz with 4 gigs of RAM. So really cheapo stuff. You might say, Joey, 3 GHz. Now back in 2007, when this CPU was released, 3 GHz was a lot. A 3 GHz dual core was like the best thing to ever happen, but CPUs have come a long way in the past 14 years, and you've noticed we only have 4 gigs of RAM. That's DDR2. So like, again, 14, 15, 16-year-old RAM. It's really a miracle that this is a 64-bit processor. I guess those came out around early 2000, so maybe not so much. This is a Dell Optiplex 755. The only really anachronistic thing in this computer is the graphics card. I have an AMD Radeon 8490. Let's look up, how old is this GPU? Maybe it's like 2013. So July 2013, it only has a gig of DDR3 video RAM. It doesn't even have HDMI. It says it does here, but this graphics card specifically doesn't. And look, it says there $100, but if we go to shopping, if I can actually click shopping, and I hit up to $20, you'll see heaps of results. $16, this is Australian dollars, by the way. $15, not even $10 in the US at least. $13, 20 Australian dollars. $17 plus tax, $11 US. Like, this is not an expensive card. You can find it secondhand for up to $20 quite easily. I see a lot of posts with people who have a computer that is newer than this, like 2010, and they might have 4 gigs of RAM, a 3 gigahertz or maybe even 2.4 gigahertz CPU. It's going to be a dual core if it's past 2010, let's be honest, folks. And people say that's not good enough, the game will run terribly if you run it on that. On those kinds of computers, and I'll show you an example of a post on screen, the only real bottleneck that most of these older computers have is the video card. So the Sims website is a bit optimistic with the video cards, like 128 megs of RAM. Do we really think that will run minimum? Like, maybe the game will open, but it might not run. But you can get a video card like the 8490 that will run The Sims 4 just fine for $15. That's how much I spent on this on Facebook Marketplace. So yeah, they recommend that you have like amazing specs. Like, that's a 2012 graphics card. That's not anything special. But most of you probably have a computer that can run this game just fine with a few, maybe less than $50 of upgrades. And these upgrades, I know that opening your computer if you're not really a techie can be scary. But it's cheap. And look, you might not get the most future-proof computer. Like, this old girl here is not going to be running, like, I don't know, the new Assassin's Creed or whatever the hot game of today is. I'm a bit behind. but it will run The Sims 4 just fine. And to prove it to you, I've got Fraps open. Not sure why it's opening again, because it's here. We're going to have the Fraps overlay, so that will show you the frames per second. You'll see a yellow number on your screen, and we're going to run the game. So I've already been playing around. I've moved a sim into a really big house with a lot of stuff going on. Just to demonstrate that this old hardware that cost me like nothing. I found this all secondhand for... Let me just let my cat out. She's being very annoying. As I was saying, I found this computer with a monitor for $30, extra RAM for $6, and the graphics card for about $15 on Facebook Marketplace. The loading time's a bit long, but admittedly, it's on a hard drive. Hard drives are slow. Get an SSD if you can. It says all these packs here, they're not actually installed, and they... Let me just open up Origin. Are they even installing? No, they're not. Oops. But if I load up our game, as you can see, the menu works fine, even though this is a 13-year-old computer with a 7-year-old budget graphics card. That's like, this is not like the peak of performance here. This is one of those graphics cards that Linus Tech Tips made a video like 7 years ago saying, don't buy this. Yeah, it's only $70, but it's gonna ruin your computer. Like, no, look at this. So we have a whole bunch of fountains. I found this house on the gallery. Fountains. We have like all these backdrop sets. And look, you might be going, Joey, why is the video in a square? So we are running it on a 12... We're running at 1280 by 960, which is a bit of a... It's a bit lower resolution than most of you will be experienced with. But the reason why I've chosen this resolution is because this computer is like 14 years old. And I imagine most people, if they still have their 14-year-old computer, they probably have a 14-year-old computer monitor lying around. And that's probably what they're using to play this. Anything between here and here is probably the kinds of resolutions you'd experience when this game came out. I'm not going to change it to... Just for funsies, let's change it to 1280 by 1024 and see what happens. So it's a bit out of the boundaries. If I just quickly... So 1280 by 1024 would be the high-end 4x3 monitor from about this time period. So let me just... It's not really fitting on, but as you can see, the game's running fine. It's running at like 50 FPS. This is perfectly playable. Obviously we're not doing much, and yeah, it looks a bit bad. Like if I put up the walls, as you can see, we can't actually see into the windows unless we're actively like looking at the floor. Like if it's rendering the story that you're looking at. But this is playable. And back in the day with The Sims 2 and The Sims 3, this is the kind of graphics most of us would expect. And as you can see in the bottom right corner, even at a pretty high resolution for a computer of this age, let's for funsies go even further. Will this crash at 1080p? The video is being recorded at 4x3, so that's why you can't see the whole screen. Okay, how am I going to do this? Give me a moment. So I'm just going to show you this half of the screen so we can see the frame rate counter. I know this isn't ideal, but I was recording. So now it goes down to about 30. If I move around, that's what really creates stuff. As you can see, it's still running at a very playable 14 frames per second. Sorry, 45 frames a second, like, even though we're playing it at 1080p, like, 30 FPS, like, this is playable. Like, obviously it's not the smoothest experience, but if this was my only option, it would be perfectly fine. Now look, with some expansions, it might slow it a bit down just in terms of load time, and if you have seasons installed, it's probably gonna like slow it a bit down a bit further, but as you can see, this is not bad. And from the perspective of a resolution you would expect from this time period, like 1280 by 960, there's no reason to run out and buy a new computer if the ones you already have, even if they are a few years old, can play the game perfectly fine. Especially in the current time we find ourselves in, where a lot of people just don't have jobs and thus don't have the money to go out and buy these new computers. But they might have enough money to buy a cheap graphics card and a few sticks of old RAM to stick in their current computer. Now look, I'm not saying this is some future-proof solution or the next big thing in PC gaming, but I don't really like it when I see people on Sims forums say to play The Sims you need these ridiculously expensive like $1,000 computers. Like sure, if you want all the graphics options, you might, but as you can see here, you just don't need it if all you want to do is just sit down and play the damn game. But as you can see, like, this is a pretty big house. Let's get some people in the hot tub. Like, just so we have some more effects running. This is playable. Like, 30 to 60 FPS, this is playable stuff. It's obviously not, like, the most amazing, but you can play this. You do not need some uber rig. A lot of laptops you'll buy will only have integrated graphics, but if you buy an older like desktop computer and plug in like a cheap graphics card, like this computer second hand, all the parts, like the extra RAM, the graphics card, only cost me about $50 altogether. Like, maybe you might need to buy a Windows key. You can get those for $20. You can easily get shitty keyboards and mice and old monitors very cheaply. If you don't have a monitor, you can buy... You don't even have to buy anything. You can just use your TV if you have one. When most people do, you can just use your TV. You don't need a special computer monitor. And yeah, you might need to buy an adapter, but you can buy adapters to convert your old graphics cards to HDMI very cheaply. That's what I have here, because this graphics card only has DVI. So I hope this goes to show that you don't need exceptional hardware to play The Sims 4 at an acceptable frame rate. Feel free to leave a comment. Thank you all for watching. Obviously we haven't done much gameplay, but I can guarantee you this is running fine. Thanks for watching. Leave some comments, tell me what you think. Have an excellent day.